Hello, fifth graders. For today, I have left some grow and shrink practice where we're going to practice with that looks block. Now, before I get into how to actually do it, uh, I want to point out that if you ever need a little bit of help, you can always go down here to the lesson resources and the teaching slides. And I'm going to pick grow and shrink because that's the assignment. I'm actually going to explain a little bit here about what's going on. So, grow and shrink, and it has notes here that you can read. Remember, the scale is based on how big the sprite starts out. So when we're trying to change the size of things, we have a special variable called scale. And it usually involves very small numbers because a small change can make a big difference. So a scale of 1 means it is 1 times as big. But if we just go up to a 2, another small number, it is actually twice as big. So it makes a big difference. Or if we go the other direction and we make it zero point 0.5 or 1 half, it would be 1 half as big. So we're going to use this technique when we want to change the size of a sprite to make a character grow or shrink. Or this one I think is the best use, which is to make a character look like they're moving towards or away from the user. So if you want to make it look like boulders coming towards you, you make them bigger. Maybe move them slightly down on the screen as well. And to make it look like he's moving further away, you want to make them smaller and smaller, and also maybe move them slightly up on the screen. So growing and shrinking creates that optical illusion. The way we're going to do this is just like we did, as it says down here, with increasing or decreasing for with variables, where we're going to set the scale, because the scale is just a variable. It's a special variable to itself plus or minus some other amount. So every time we execute that code, every time we run our code, it's going to set the scale to itself plus or minus a little bit. So let's go back to our actual assignment and we'll see exactly what I mean by that. So in the first assignment, grow and shrink, if I look at my code, I can see I have Breeze, who every frame is going to turn negative 50 degrees a second, which means she's going to turn clockwise this way. And that's cool, but we actually want to make her get bigger as well. So I'm going to say that every frame, she's going to change her scale. So I'm going to go to looks because that's where scale is. And every frame it's going to set the scale to something. Now, like I said earlier, we want to set the scale to itself plus or minus a little bit more. Now to do that, because looks and scale in particular is just a variable, I remember that variables and math, they go together, just like milk and cookies, salt and pepper, Bert and Ernie, etc. So this is really a variable, so that means I need to use math. So I'm going to make it increase by using the addition block right here. So the scale is going to be set to itself, in that first spot, plus a little bit more each time. Now remember, scale, you only need small numbers to change it. So let's see what this one does. Whoa, and even though that was only 1/10, that went really, really fast. Let me maybe make that 1/100th. It's a little slower, still growing. I'm going to speed that up a little bit. Let's go halfway and say 5/100ths. Pretty good. I'm going to leave it there. Now, if I'm running this program, I see that Breeze gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's kind of like, oh man, you're in my personal space. Kind of awkward. Maybe you should stop getting so close to me. You seem a little too happy to be this close. What's going on? So I want to make her stop getting bigger at some point, which means that I need to change the amount here. Because if we think about this, every frame, it's adding 5/100ths to that variable scale, right? It's setting scale to itself plus 5/100ths. So it starts at 1, and then after 1/10 of a second, after one frame, it would be, I'm just going to type it here, would be 1 and 5 tenths. After 2 frames, 1 and 1 tenth. After 3 frames, 1 and 15 hundredths. I said that last part wrong. After, and et cetera, et cetera. It goes up and up and up and up and up. So even though it's pretty small, we are going to want to make that variable stop at 0 so that it stops getting bigger. So that means I'm going to add a variable, and I'm going to define it before the program starts, set variable, and I'm going to make a new variable. I'm going to call this variable scale increase. And initially, I want that scale increase to actually be at 0.05 or 5 hundredths. And I'm going to put that variable here where I have that value. So that means that every frame, it's going to add to my scale this amount. And right now, that amount is this much. So this should look exactly like we just had it. Perfect. But like I said, I want Breeze to stop getting so big. So at some point, I need to change that scale increase, the amount that's getting added every single frame, to 0 so that it stays the same. Oh, I don't need the every frame. That's for smooth movement. I need the after. Let's just say after 3 seconds, I'm going to set that scale increase. Remember, variables and math go together, to 0. So after 3 seconds, what's going to happen is that it's just going to keep adding 0 to my scale, 0 to my scale, 0 to my scale, which should stop it from growing, or stop her from growing. There we go. Perfect. So once you have some code that looks like this, go ahead and turn it in. You can pause the video if you need to, rewind it if you need to. But let's turn that one in. And now I'm going to go over. Oops, oh yeah, it doesn't actually kick you back. I'm going to go over the first assignment for today, grow and shrink 1. So anytime you open one of these assignments, you want to click on the assignment tab on the right to see what it wants you to do. So I'm going to run the program, take a look. Once it loads here, you can breeze again. Interesting. Let's run that one more time. It was a little glitchy. So I've noticed that breeze is moving to the right and shrinking. Eventually moves to the left and is shrinking. Move to the right again and is shrinking. Kind of odd, but let's make it happen. So let's see what code we got right now. So before the program starts, we're setting some variable fly speed to 150. Okay. And then every frame it's going to move to the right at fly speed, move up 50. So that means that when the program starts, every frame it's going to move to the right 150. Ooh, but every 5 seconds, that fly speed gets turned negative, which means it'll go the other direction. So that's why we see here we have positive 150 going to the right, and then negative 150 going to the left, and then positive 150 going to the right. Oh, and then additionally, we have the movement of breeze faces opposite. So it's in my code, it's going to look, yep, basically the same except without the growing and shrinking. So let's fix that. So let's see what we have to do down here. So the feature we saw, breeze gets smaller as she moves and resets every 5 seconds. Well, that's nice because we have the 5 seconds right here. So we're going to add to every frame, that she is going to have her scale decrease by 500. Oh, this is a lot like the one we did last time, except now we are just going to decrease it. So I'm going to go to looks, set my scale to, because looks is a variable, I'm going to go to math. It's going to set it to itself minus 0.05. So we can watch what this happens. So Breeze is shrinking, shrinking. Uh-oh, we crashed the program. So the problem here is that scale cannot be 0. The program does not know what to do when scale equals 0. So what's happening here is I'm subtracting 5 hundredths every frame, but eventually if I keep subtracting it, I'll hit 0. So I need to reset that scale. Aha, and here's what it has. Every 5 seconds, set the scale to 3. So let's do that. Every 5 seconds, set my scale to 3. That way it will never hit 0. So it's going to subtract, 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 and then reset to 3. Subtract, subtract, subtract. Scale is getting smaller. Reset to 3 over and over. And that's really it. So every frame we're making Breeze get smaller. And then to make sure we don't crash our program, because if scale is 0, it's going to crash, we have to reset it, make it big again. Well, relatively big. 3 is still a small number. We have to make it bigger to 3 so that it can then subtract, subtract, subtract 3, subtract, subtract, subtract 3, and that's it. So let's go ahead and turn this thing in. I'm going to go back to my assignments. That one was pretty easy. And again, you can rewind it and pause it if you need a little bit more help. That's okay. And I also have assignments 2 and 3 that you can do today. But I'm going to stop there and let you try those individually. So good luck.